This is Epistory, Typing Chronicles. Epistory is a hard game to nail down. At first, it just seems to be a speed typing edutainment program, but then it quickly becomes a subtle yet deeply personal biography of a young woman's life. It's also a fast-paced action RPG with Metroidvania world exploration. There's even some Zelda-style puzzle rooms here and there. That's an ambitious set of ideas to execute on, and any number of those things could have gone wrong. But instead of failing, Epistory manages to flourish with nearly every element in its design. The emphasis on typing is not simply grafted into an otherwise standard action RPG, but instead inspires every aspect of Epistory's design. From the way the world unfolds in books and paper folding to the fact that you can even use the menus by typing your way through to each function, everything is enveloped by writing. The world comes alive through this storybook framing, and evokes the equally beautiful art design in Sony Japan's Puppeteer, and it's brilliant seeing another take on such a whimsical setting. What's probably most remarkable though is that Epistory, despite however many moments it contains that push your typing skills to the limit, is quite soothing. The sound design is amazing, and I could meditate to its soundtrack. It punctuates everything just right. The only songs that really grew stale were battle songs, because they're a bit more obvious in their repetition, they're a bit louder, and they lack the variety of the songs you hear while exploring. Still, after that long battle is done, you're met by the most satisfying crackle of a new portion of the world unfolding before you, and you're back to enjoying yourself. Still, even with the best visuals and sound design, a game has to have solid gameplay. Thankfully, Epistory manages what many developers have failed at by making typing an entertaining way to fight enemies. And instead of it purely being typing to shoot enemies, like in Typing of the Dead, you have to juggle elemental powers, ensure you're far enough away from your enemies, and sometimes activate aspects of the environment. You might need to light your way to see your enemies, or leave a barrier up to snipe enemies from afar, and then burn it away so you can proceed. There are two really clever parts about Epistory's combat. First, it has adaptive difficulty, so those who struggle with rapid typing will be given some breathing room, while more advanced typists can push themselves to try and unlock the game's 60 words per minute achievement. Second, the elemental powers are the perfect crutch for whatever your weakness is, and are also fantastic tactical options. If you're great at taking out single, long words at a time but keep getting swarmed, you can use lightning that will chain attack multiple enemies. If you hate dealing with longer words, fire will burn whatever word is above the one you currently need to type, which spares up time for the various smaller words that are also around you. If you're still getting used to the speed of everything, ice temporarily freezes an enemy in place, giving you time to work through a word or swap out another element for another form of attack. Then there's wind. All wind does is knock enemies back, which ice already does on top of freezing said enemy in place. It doesn't do any added damage, and it's given so late in the game that you'll hardly use it. This is the only element that doesn't really have a point though, thankfully. That said, the game also suffers from a handful of battles that feel a bit rushed. The two most notable battles in the main storyline are in the wind sections, where the game just spams enemies at you, and with white text prompts on a faintly white-gray background, it can be quite frustrating. The most problematic fight, though, is how the cave side quest's final boss battle struggles to keep up with you. There are so many different text prompts at a given time that I often would nearly die, and at a few times did die, because the game was still trying to figure out which word I was typing for. This fight needs reworked, as it is otherwise a brilliant little encounter, but it is asking too much of the game's input systems. Beyond that though, the gameplay just works great. You not only fight enemies by typing, but interact with the world and with puzzle elements through typing. There's nothing on display that will rival a Portal puzzle room necessarily, but the various environmental puzzles and interactions are satisfying and help contribute to your progression, letting you improve not only your core abilities, but bonus abilities like fast travel. There is one problem with the upgrade system though. You have to invest valuable upgrade points on the ability to just walk faster. There's no reason for this. I can't think of any other game that has done this, and I don't really see the benefit of implementing such a stopgate here. If anything, you want to explore, so they should be encouraging you to explore further. Thankfully, even if you do start out walking slowly, the world is constantly opening up and providing new areas to see as you earn experience, keeping a solid pace of player-driven momentum that far bigger titles have struggled with. Instead of barraging you with things to do like a modern Assassin's Creed title, Epistory trusts you to find things for yourself, while gently guiding you where it needs to. Every time it stops you, it's made clear what you need to proceed, and each goal is reasonably within your reach. You need an elemental power, or you need to just grind a level or two. Even when you're turned away from one point on the map, there's almost always another part that's ready to present you with a new challenge, and likely give you the means to access that one place that you were trying to get into. It's all so splendidly constructed and cohesive that it makes you disappointed that its dual narratives don't have quite the same level of coherent design. The game opens with an author writing a traditional fantasy story, and your actions follow the narrator as she writes. This makes total sense for the game's style and gameplay focus, but then you discover that there's a hidden layer to the author's side of things. You come to find that there are two storylines, one told mostly through allegory and environmental storytelling, and the other told through the narration. They also overlap on certain key points, further alluding to what secrets the game is hiding. Unfortunately, the deeper story is rather opaque at times, and nearly falls into the threadbare territory, despite clearly being what the developers were hoping would be the crux of the game's plot. For example, by completing side quests in the main hub areas, you get access to glimpses into a young woman's life, who may or may not be the author narrating the fantasy story. You also hear her personal thoughts throughout your exploration, and a few bits and pieces from key moments in her life.
Thank you! God, that was close. I swear, one of those things will get me someday.
But they often just feel like that. Fragments. It's up to you to make sense of those fragments, and while I was able to follow the story for the most part, certain plot points just didn't connect. You're left feeling like you're only catching a fraction of the important information, which just leaves you frustrated. I'm all for ambitious types of storytelling, but for every great visual metaphor or clever allegory through a gameplay mechanic, there's a bit of audio that just leaves you hanging. You get a better idea of what all happened by finding every secret, but even then, it just ends up being build up for a lackluster payoff. This also contrasts with your growing sense of mastery over the game's combat and puzzles, making the narrative seem malnourished by comparison. It's not to the point of the storytelling being bad, but it's not on par with the rest of the game. It's well delivered by a single voice actress, and some of the environmental storytelling really comes together, particularly in the Lightning City, but it clearly could be far greater. Maybe make things a bit less opaque, or go fully metaphorical with your storytelling, a la Flower. Being stuck in the middle chafes at the potential of Epistory's, well, story. My only other complaint with the game is how little content there is in the game's challenge mode. I cracked it open and was met with 2 maps, even though there were several suitable arenas in the main storyline that could have served well here. It's not a deal breaker, but it would be nice to see the challenge mode improved in an update down the road. All that said, I am amazed at how genuinely content and happy I was playing Epistory. It's rare I play a game that is fun, relaxing, engaging, and challenging all at once. I actually plan on revisiting the game, not for review purposes, but just for my own enjoyment. The level of cohesion in the game's aesthetics, sound design, and gameplay is remarkable and is worthy of your time. Whether you just need a break from traditional AAA games, want to improve your touch typing skills, or simply love the idea of a relaxing RPG in a world of finely folded paper, try Epistory. It's yet another solid indie title in 2016's lineup of stellar indie games, which is why Epistory, type in Chronicles, gets a 9.25 out of 10.